Genealogy brick walls. How to break through genealogy brick walls. This is Jack Lader. I'm really excited, guys. Those of you who are in my family have probably know a little bit about what's going on here. I broke through a major brick wall, and I want to show you what I did and how I did it, and how we could break through brick walls. I found believe it or not, I found my long lost uh, great grandfather, and this is really amazing and neat. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, and those of you who are in my family, I think you'll appreciate this. And even if you're not in my family, it's going to be a great learning lesson. I'm going to show you real quickly how you could break through a brick wall, possible brick walls in your family. So anyway, let me show you how I did this. This is really neat. I just broke through a brick wall, a genealogy brick wall that I have been facing for at least 15 years, maybe longer. And what it is I'm showing you my pedigree chart right now. Right here is my grandmother Nellie Christine Clifton, and this has been our shortest line in our family. The other family lines that we have are pretty long and pretty extensive and significant, but this line right here, this Clifton line of my grandmother's father, is really short. And if you think about it for a second, this is my grandmother, and so my grandfather, we don't have any information going back any further than his great grandfather, this Charles Clifton, or his great grandmother Melvina Clifton, or Melvina Tremaine. Now, we still have a brick wall with Melvina Tremaine, and she's our next focus next. But just last week, we found we solved a major breakthrough. Let me show you something here for a second. This is my son Eli later, and I gave him a little bit of a challenge. I knew in the last 15 years that I wasn't able to. I mean, this was a brick wall, and I kind of bribed my son. I told my son Eli, I says, I'll pay you $100 if you help me find this Charles Clifton. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. I said, Eli, it won't be easy because I've been working on this for 10 or 15 years, maybe longer, and it's worth it $100 to me if you could help me find our long lost grandpa. And he said, okay. He's really excited about getting $100, and here I am thinking, okay, it's not going to be easy for him, and I'm willing to pay him $100 to help me. Eli's right here. We're at a jazz game, but anyway, so he said, okay, we'll do it. Well, about a week ago, we had a family history session. We had a special seminar that we did at our church on family history. And while we were there, there was an expert genealogist that just happened to be in our church, in our ward, here in Salt Lake City. And he was a real expert, and he gave me some ideas that I had never seen before. After telling him what the problem was that we were facing, he was able to point us into some directions that I had never seen before. So I'm going to share some of those with you right now. But anyway, here it is. Here's my grandmother and her father, and his father's right here, and his mother, like I said. And I'm going to show you how I got through this brick wall, and this is really neat. I am so excited about this. I've never made a video about genealogy before, but I'm going to do it right now. And incidentally, there's a link below this video to a new website that I created specifically for genealogy. Now, it has my family in it, but there's a good chance that you might even see your own family in there. I have over 1,000 photos in this website, really rare photos, as well as probably 10,000 names. And so you may want to check it out below. It's at latergenealogy.org, latergenealogy.org, when you click the link below the video. But anyway, this is I'm really excited about this. I mean, like I said, it's a major brick wall that we were able to go through. And up until now, we were not able to go past this Charles Clifton. Now, you see a name here, and I'm going to show you how this came about right now. So let me show you what I did, and this is really, really neat. So let me close this, and I'll show you how we did this. So this is the program that I'm using. Let me get over here for a second. Now, I had some, some clues through some genealogy that my dad's cousin did, and it was basically we already knew that my grandmother Nellie Christine Clifton was born in St. Louis, even though she lived in California, and her father George Clifton was born in St. Louis. We knew that through census records and other records and death records, etc. And then going back a little bit further, his father, through some census records and other records, we found out that his father was Charles Clifton and his mother was Melvina Tremaine. And there were some things that we knew, some things that we didn't know. So let me just show you. This is really, really interesting right here. I'm going to show you this. We happen to have a Bible that had listed the marriage of Charles Clifton with Melvina Tremaine. Now it says it looks like Tomaine here, but actually we believe that it's probably Tremaine through some other evidence that we have. But anyway, Charles Clifton and Melvina Tremaine, November 23rd, 1851. Now the problem is that I tried to find an original marriage record for Charles and Melvina in order to find their parents. And that would have been nice, and it would have been awesome. But as far as we could tell, it does not exist. We think that Charles Clifton and Melvina were probably married in New York because their first child was born in New York. But we went to New York and we found out that New York in the mid 1850s and early 1850s did not require a marriage record at all. So it wasn't required, but it was listed in this Bible in 1851, and that's all we had. It doesn't even say where they were married. I'm assuming they were probably married in New York. They could have even been married in Nova Scotia, Canada, because Melvina is from Canada. But we didn't have any evidence of that. But this is what we did have. So this was a brick wall. If we had a marriage record, it would not have been a brick wall. It would have showed Charles and Melvina's parents on it, possibly, but we didn't have that. So this was the brick wall. Now, how in the heck did we ever get past this brick wall? And this is where the excitement starts. And this is where my friend, where Eli came in, and my friend Clayton Bruff comes in. Clayton Bruff is he's a retired school teacher, but he's a genealogist, and he's as close to a professional as you could get. I'm not sure if he's a certified professional or not, but the guy really knows what he's doing. And so I told him about this brick wall, and I says, I don't know how to get past this. I have this marriage record, and I started to give him what I already knew. And this is what I'm going to show you, something that's really interesting, and this is pretty awesome. What do we know about Charles? Now check this out. This is kind of cool. We have an 1860 census in St. Louis, where they lived. And if you can see this here, 1860 in Missouri. So it's Charles Clifton right here. Now this is Ireland, but Ireland is real close to England, and most of the census records that we have, most of them, besides this one, shows that Charles Clifton is from England. And we know that these census records are not perfect. Mistakes happen from time to time, but we're close with Ireland. But like I said, all of the other census records we have show that he's from England. Melvina's from Nova Scotia. Now, look at this. Charles, their oldest son, is from New York, and that's a clue that I'm going to show you later on. It's a clue. Then the second child, Illinois, and the rest of the children are born in Missouri. Here's George W. That's my dad's grandpa right here. George W. is in Missouri. And that's all there is in 1860. Now, don't forget this New York one. They did end up in St. Louis, but they started in New York as far as we could tell. So let me click out of this. Let's look at the 1870 census now. This is another federal census. Let me see if we can find this. Okay, here it is right here. Okay, so this is the 1870 census. And you can see right here, Charles Clifton, Melvina is right here. Then John, George, Corinth, Christine, and Charles. Now, this is really, really significant. Here's George again, my dad's grandpa. He knew his grandpa, George Clifton. Those of you who are in our family, you'll know that Dad talks about Swedish pancakes all the time, and he has a phenomenal recipe for Swedish pancakes. And he said that he got that recipe from his dad, George Clifton. And again, George is born in Missouri, but his father was born in England. Again, that's really, really significant. Born in England, okay? And almost every census that we have, multiple censuses, show that he was from England, okay? Now, let me escape out of this. Whoops, don't want to do that. Okay, now what I'm not showing here, and I forgot to put it on here, I actually have a death record of Charles, and I've got to scan it later on when I get off here, but I have a death record that shows that Charles was also born in England. And it said that his birth year was about 1830. So remember the 1830. So here's so remember, all of the census records that we have, except for the one, shows that he was born in England, and then one said Ireland, but most of them said England. The 1870, we have an 1880 census. I don't have it right here, but the 1880 census, well, actually, let me think about this for a second. Well, let me back up. Almost every census that we have, again, said that he was from England. We do have an 1880 census, but he had died by 1880. But it indicates that Father Charles was from England. So multiple censuses said that he was from England. So what's the big deal here? Well, one day I came across this census right here, and I knew this years ago, but it's always thrown me for a loop. Let me show you right here. This is the 1920 census of California. And by then, Dad's grandpa George Clifton had moved to California, to Los Angeles. And here's George Clifton right here. Hopefully you can see this. George Clifton right here. Okay, George and Minnie, and then their children. And Nellie's right here. This is my grandmother, Nellie. Now, check this out. On George Clifton, look over here on his line, and it shows that George Clifton's father was born at sea. Now check this out. This column here asks, where was your father born? Where was your father born? And George says right here, when the census taker came, I don't know if you can see this, but right here it says at sea, whatever that means. Now I don't know what this DC means. That may be an initial of somebody. I'm not sure what that DC means. But he was born at sea. And now right here, again, it says that his father was English. Well, the language was English. He spoke English. But if you look over here, it shows the birthplace of father and mother. This is the father and mother of George that we didn't know enough about. So Charles, in other words, the mother was born in Canada. That's Nova Scotia. We find out later on. But we're going to solve her problem later on. But right now I'm going to show you how we solved the brick wall of Charles. It says here that Charles was born in England. Let's see, it's from England. Let me see here. I think this was from, let me look at this just a second. I got to try to remember what this is. It just says mother's tongue, birthplace. Father's, okay. So that column over there is just the mother. So we need to look at this one here. I'll get down to it. Here it is. Here it is. So anyway, here it is. George Clifton again. So here's George Clifton. I had to get my column straight here, guys. Sorry about this. But anyway, go over here, And this is where father was born, at sea. Okay? What in the heck does that mean? Okay, now we know he's from England. Most of the census records said he was from England, but this census said that he was born at sea. Well, when I told my friend about this, my genealogist specialist, he says, you know what, Jack? It's going to be hard to find a record if he was at sea. He says those ship records were not very good at recording when somebody was born or married at sea. And he says, you know what, I wonder. He says, well, maybe he was born in England, but maybe his occupation was at sea. Maybe his occupation was at sea. And he says, you know, we have records of seamen who in England, and you could find out if his occupation was at sea, if he was a seaman or if he was a seafarer. They will probably have his record in England, because England did a real good job of recording lots of details about seamen, okay, about seafarers and people who worked at sea. And so we started to investigate this. This is one angle that I'd never seen before. And remember, we didn't have a marriage record of Charles and Melvina. So Charles is born in England, and what we're doing is we're looking into the possibility that maybe he worked as a seaman, a seafarer, maybe a Navy person or something like that. So what we did is we went into Ancestry.com, and this is what we found. We'll get out of this here for a second. And check this out. We found a Charles Clifton in England, and we found this is a merchant seaman record in England. The merchant seamen, what they did is the merchant vessels would actually carry goods and products from England to the United States and Canada and elsewhere. And often these ships were manned by civilians. And so Charles was a civilian, as far as we can tell. He was a civilian that worked on a merchant ship. And here is his record right here, Charles Clifton. And look right here, it says he was born in Hollington, County of Sussex. That's Sussex, S-U-S-S-E-X, Sussex, June 1830. Now, I have a death record that shows that Charles Clifton was born in 1830. His death record said he was born in 1830. I don't have a birth record, but I have a death record that says that Charles was born in 1830. And as close as we could tell from that death record, it was probably a month off, but it said that he was born in the middle of April 1830, a month and a half different from the June 1st, 1830. But this is pretty darn close. June 1st, 1830 is his birth date, according to Charles. Look at his capacity, seaman, right here. Okay, I don't know if you could read that, but that's what it says, seaman. He's 5 feet 4 inches tall. Now, why is that important? Because his son, George Clifton, was rather short. I have a photograph of his son, George Clifton, and he's the same height as his wife, Minnie Clifton, who's around 5'4". She's a little bit taller than my mom. I have a photograph of my mother and my mom's about 5'2", with Minnie Clifton, and she's a little bit taller than my mom. Well, George Clifton, the son of Charles Clifton, is about the same height as his wife. So seeing a height of 5'4" doesn't surprise me. So again, just another teeny tiny clue. It's not a big deal, but just a small clue. Now, what else do we see here? He first went into sea in 1848 as a laundryman, just a young teenager, probably 18 years old. Now, what else do we see? When unemployed, he resides in Hollington. Now, Hollington is in the county of Sussex. I've checked it out. And check this out. This is something very, very, very significant. Look at this date here on the right. Reported voyages 1851. Now, why is that so important? According to the Bible, that Bible record that they had, the Bible record showed that they were married in 1851. That Bible record that I have earlier here, where's that Bible record? Right here. Look at this. The Bible record says that they were married in 1851. So why is that important? Now, check this out. I got to show you one other thing about this. Where's that ship record? There it is. Okay, this is so significant. Okay, 1851 is when this record was made. Now, there's William, my son William helped me figure this out. We did some brainstorming together. Now, anyway, I have a lot of thoughts going through my head right now, but look at these. Look at this 1851. It shows voyages out, voyages home. Okay, now we have a record up here of the number of days that they were home and out, but look at the bottom here. There was a correction, and Charles Clifton signed this correction that it was correct. And I guess there was some question about how many days he was in and out, and he verified the days in and out here. It looks like we have 195 days out at sea and another 12 days out at sea, and then on the right here, home. Now, home would have been Hollington, and home was 88 days at home, and then 57 days at home. Now, if you add up all of these days, we're short about, I think about 12 days short of 365. 365 days, he was either at sea or he was home. Now, where was home? Home was England. So the question is, where was he those other 12 days in 1851? Where was he those other 12 days in 1851? Now, if he was not at home in Hollington or at sea, where was he? Is it possible, that he was on ship, and then eventually got to the United States or Canada? We're not sure, but it's very possible New York. Is it possible that during those 12 days that he got married? Is it possible? Okay. Don't have any proof of that, but is it possible, based on 1851, according to the Bible record that they had, he was married in November 1851. Now that's the end of November, so there's 12 days unaccounted for. Could it be that he was courting, or either being married, or had been on a honeymoon with his wife Melvina during those 12 days? Just an idea, just a thought, one other piece of the puzzle possibility here. Now, what do we want to do? What we want to do here is we want to figure out who his parents are, right? Can we find Charles? If this is our Charles, and we think it is, if this is our Charles, can we find him in England? Okay. Can we find him on a census record? So we went to England, we searched out Sussex, and look what we found. I'm going to show you right here. Okay, so here is an 1841 census of, right here, I don't know if you can see this, but this is an 1841 Sussex, England parish record. It's a census record. And let me see if I can find where this is. Here, let's see. Okay, here it is. Right here. Sussex, England, 1841 census. Here's a William Clifton, an Anne Clifton, Charlotte Henry, Charles in 1841. They put him at 10 years old. Now, the census people in England at that time loved using multiples of 5. If you look through here, most of these are multiples of 5, the ages. So this is not an exact birth date, but this is 1841. They put him at 10. He was actually probably 11 years old at the time. This is Sussex, England. 11 years old, 10, 11 years old, puts him at 1830, around the same year as that Seaman record said that he was born around 1830. So this is correct as far as the age. And what we did what you see here is if this is our Charles, and we later on have been able to determine that it is based on the preponderance of evidence here, but if this is our father and if this is our Charles, which we think it is, we have a William as the father, Anne as the mother, then Charlotte, Henry, Charles, John, George, Mary, and Alfred. Now, this is what is really, really significant about this family. Okay, patronymics. In other words, naming your children after your father and other people that are in your family. Charles Clifton, with his own children, has names in his family that are really, really similar to these names. He has in his family a William, that's his father's name. Charles also has in his children, he named his children. Another child was named Charles, another child was named John, another child was named George. And I'm going to show you how this comes to be. Let me show you this here for a second. Let me go back here if I could find this. Which one is this? Just a second here. Minimize that. Oh, here we go. Now let me show you the names. These are really significant. Okay, look at the similar names. Okay, so here's Charles again. And we have a John, a George. These are Charles' children. George's dad's grandpa. A John and a George and Williams. Now let me show you the William. We have a George William. We also now here's the William part. That's really important. Then we have a Frederick W. Now I believe that's a Frederick William Clifton, and I'll show you why. Look at Frederick William's son. Frederick William's son is William. William. So we got a William here. We got a William here. Why is that William name so significant? Let's go back to Charles again. Look at George William. This is George William Sr. This is my dad's grandpa, and he named one of his children George William again. William. Why is that name William so significant? And here's my dad's mother right here, Nellie, whom I knew. But William, and then Frederick William again, and then Frederick William's son William. Why is this name William so significant? Well, it's because their grandfather's name is William. Now, let me show you something else. This is the main thing right here, is that this is the biggest find, is that we kept seeing similar names in the family that are showing up in Charles's children. Now, okay, now let me see here for a second. So we go back to the 1841 census, and let me show you a little bit better view of this. That's not that here. Oh, this one here. Okay, so again, to see these closer, this is a little bit better census. So here's William right here. Then Anne, again, 1841 census. Charlotte, Henry, Charles. This is William's family. We could compare these side by side. Here is Charles, the son, and his children. And this is his father, William, and their children. So here's a William, right? We saw the William. George William, and then Frederick William, and their children being named after William. Another commonality, we have a Charles, and then which is the son, and then Charles names his son Charles. That's a no-brainer. Then we got John over here on the father's children. Well, Charles named one of his kids John right here. And then we have George on the right. Okay, William named one of his kids George. Charles named one of his kids George. And then we have Mary and Alfred. So look at all these similar names here. Now, I was like 95% convinced that this is probably him. And my son Eli said, no, that's him. That's him. I got to have my $100. I got to have my $100. It's him. I said, well, I'm pretty sure it's him too, but we want to check just a little bit further. So we decided to go down to the Genealogy library in Salt Lake City, the big library, biggest library in the world for genealogy. Went down there, and my friend Clayton Bruff knew I was going to be down there, and I didn't know he was going to be there. But as we were going through a bunch of microfilm to do a little bit more research, I happened to see Clayton go into the bathroom just as we found a significant date, which happened to be that merchant Seaman record. We had seen it before, but just as we were seeing it again, we saw our friend go into the bathroom. So I said, I'm going to stop him. I let him go into the bathroom. But when he came back, I stopped him. I says, hey, I'm so glad to see you. I have some questions to ask you, and I need a little bit more help. I think we've almost got this nailed down. And he says, I'm pretty sure this is your person already. And I says, well, can we do a little bit more verifying? Well, what we did is we went into some other censuses, and I says, well, what if there's another Charles Clifton in England? I guess I was still a little bit skeptical. I was just 90% there, and I says, well, can we rule out the other Cliftons, the other Charles Cliftons in England? And we went through the census records, and we found like 3 or 4 other Charles Cliftons, but the other Charles Cliftons showed up in later censuses in England after 1851. Remember the marriage date, 1851 November, the end of November here. So we kept, and incidentally, that gave Charles plenty of time to do sailing on that vessel in 1851, all of those days. But anyway, back here, we wanted to rule out any other possible Charles Cliftons in England. Well, our Charles Clifton never showed up in any other census after 1851. But other Charles Cliftons did show up in England in 1851, so we easily eliminated all of the other Charles Cliftons in England that were there that stayed after 1851. And the only Charles Clifton that didn't show up after 1851 in the England census was our Charles Clifton, this one right here. Okay, so he doesn't show up in England anymore after 1851. And so my friend is saying, this is probably your guy. I'm 95% sure that it's your guy. And it's one of those things that, based on the preponderance of evidence, without having a marriage record, this is your guy. Okay. So we were already, that got me to be about 95% sure, based on the process of eliminating all of the other Charles Cliftons who showed up after 1851 in England, and our Charles Clifton with all the patronymics showing up, not showing up in England, but he does show up in the United States. Now, one other thing is, we started doing a little bit more research the next day. And let me see what I could find here. Yeah, so we did a little bit more research the next day, and this is my other son William kind of helped me find this. I came across, this is the real clincher, this is the second clincher that that convinced me that this is really their parents. We found an 1841 census in New York State. Now remember, this first son, Charles Clifton Jr., right here, was born in New York. According to the 1860 census, the oldest son was born in New York. But I had never been able to find a census in New York that had Charles's name on it. And it's true, in 1850, he may have been there in 1850. Well, no, I don't think he was there in 1850. He was out to sea, according to the records there. But I can never find... I could never be convinced that Charles Clifton was in New York on any census, so I never found it. But that was federal censuses. I came across last week a New York State census, in in 1855, I think, 54 or 55. And this is what I found. Let me see if I can show you this. See if I can find. This is the earliest census I have of Charles and Melvina, and they are in New York. And I've never been able to see them in New York before. They've always been in Missouri. See if I can find this. Here it is. Well, is this it? 1841. Oh, no. This is the England one. Sorry about this, guys. I picked the wrong one. Where is... Oh, here it is. 1855 Census, New York. I had the wrong one. Here's 1855 Census, New York State. I was never, in 15 years, I was never able to find this census. But it's now, thank goodness for modern technology and Ancestry.com, I was able to find it. Oh, here it is right here. Right at the bottom. Look at this. Charles Clifton, 25 years old, right name, right age, and Melvina, 23. And look at this. Charles Jr., New York. Finally, I finally found him in New York City. In New York City, I found him with a Charles Clifton, the son. We were able to find Charles Clifton in an 1860 census in St. Louis. So between 1855 and 1860, they moved from New York City to St. Louis, but I was never able to find him in New York. Now, I want to show you something that's really significant. This is our Charles and Melvina, no doubt. Now, here's the clincher. Look at Charles Clifton right here. This is a Charles, it's an abbreviation for Charles Clifton. The age is right, Melvina, Charles, anyway. Look right over here. This column here lists the occupation of Charles Clifton. Look what it says. Seafaring. Seafaring. Our Charles Clifton has been found. He's been found. Seafaring. Which tells us that our other Charles Clifton, who was a seafaring person, back here with this original record, see if I can find it again, the ship record, he was a seafaring person from England, Charles Clifton. We narrowed down all of the dates and all of the families that had a Charles Clifton in it, and this is from Sussex. It all comes down to this one. And by the way, Sussex, England, according to, because that's where he was from, is on the coast, which makes sense for a seafarer. And these are his brothers and sisters right here. Charles Clifton's brothers and sisters. His father is William. His mom is Anne. We don't know her last name yet. But now that we know where they're from in Sussex, England, it's wide open now. Sussex, England is loaded with Cliftons. Let me show you one interesting thing here. We have William Clifton with a christening record of 1800, and this matches, by the way, the census records for William Clifton, and this is William Clifton's christening record, and his parents are William Clifton and Mary. So now we've gone another generation back, and now we know where to look, and we're not done with this today. I am, but this line is going to continue. Now, William Clifton christening. So now we have the parents of Charles Clifton and Melvina of Charles Clifton. We don't know the parents of Melvina yet. We're going to get to that one on another month or year possibly. But we now know Charles Clifton family. We don't have a picture of Charles. I wish I had one, but I don't. William Clifton and his mother Ann. Let me do the family here. So here's William, there's Ann, and their children are Charlotte, Henry, Charles, John, George, Mary, and Alfred. And William Clifton's father is William Clifton Sr. and Mary. This is a major brick wall solved. And I've included a link below this video for the entire family and over 1,000 photographs, rare photographs of this family. Click the link below the video to go to, let's see, latergenealogy.org, latergenealogy.org. Check it out. Your family might be there. I mean, obviously, guys, if you're in my family and I'm talking to you, but those of you who are not in my family, there's a good chance you might find a relationship in the link below. And also make sure while you're down there, there may be a link to Ancestry.com. It's besides the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Ancestry.com is probably the most significant ancestry genealogy resource site that you'll find online. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my data. So anyway, this has been exciting, neat stuff. And I hope that this was neat for you. And this is a major find. In 15 years, actually, I started probably 25 years ago searching out our ancestry. And I knew about the problem, the brick wall with Charles Clifton 15 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago. And I've been actively searching for it for 15 years. And it wasn't until recently. So explore every single angle of those merchant ship records. I never thought about looking in those, but Ancestry was a big help, and the FamilySearch.org was a significant help with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I honestly believe that God was helping us in this and guiding us to finding William and Ann finally and hooking up this family. Make it a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this. Click the link below the video and check out the family site there. Talk to you later. Bye.